'Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.
Hello, how are we all? How are we all, people? I was a bit slow on the button there, sorry. I forgot how quick the intro comes in. So, did you like the other person that was in there, Shalini? Did you see her? Did you? And Chaz says hello. I'm going to have to get them animated, aren't I? Who's watching the rugby too? I'd given up watching sports. Apart from Formula 1, I still watch that occasionally. So how are we all? How are we all? It's cooler up here today. It's been thunder and lightning since about 3 o'clock. Torrential rain. Sometimes literal cats and dogs. I think it's been that loud. So it's really coming down. It's quite nice for a change. Still 23 degrees in here though, which is quite warm. I'm not quite sure what it's saying out here, outside. Never mind, doesn't matter. Apart from that, I hope everybody's had a good weekend and having a relaxing Sunday evening. I just thought I'd come on and have a chat with you again. Since I did it last night, it breaks up the boredom. It gives me something to do because I'm not sitting in a drunken stupor watching TV. Well, I don't watch TV anyway. I only ever watch YouTube or something like that. I ended up watching a movie last night on YouTube called Ice Twisters. It was awful. It was so awful that it was really good. I found it quite enthralling. But yeah. So that was that. And I mean, this is some of the nonsense I've been watching. I see Netflix are starting to hit the old, your TV doesn't, well, it says TV, but I'm watching Netflix on a Shield and it says your Netflix doesn't, your device doesn't appear to be part of the household. Obviously, I'll need to take it up to the house and get it resynced again. Because obviously the wife and the kids have Netflix. 25.7 degrees in the room, look. Yeah, that's quite warm, mate. That is quite warm. It was really warm up here yesterday. Really warm. Oppressively so. I think it's to cool down a bit up here. I think the forecast for tomorrow is like 18, which is quite nice. 18's fine. I can do that. But hey, yeah, there's little Chaz there, sitting beside us. He's taking over Ben's. He even written his name over the top of Ben's. See that? Good on you, Chaz. Good on you, mate. He's quieter than Ben as well, but in some ways more interactive. I'm sorry, I shouldn't mock him. Right. So what do we want to talk about tonight? I tell you what, somebody sent me something about Stonehenge today, and I watched it, and I'd replied to somebody about Stonehenge not being quite real because it was rebuilt, and I thought 53. I got the dates wrong because it was actually 58, but it turns out, and I said, but is that was that guy Pewty in Scotland? And I said, but how often does it? How often has it been rebuilt? And it turns out it's been rebuilt quite a couple of times. So we could have a look. We could have a look at that. Hi Trudy, nice to see you. Robin, good. The kid, I don't know if there's a kid buried under there, but I've got a 3-minute video here that someone sent me today, which is pretty cool. From a guy called D, who's less subscribers than us. He's only got 383, and yet it's 71,000 views on it. So what can you say? Whereas we've got more subscribers, and we're lucky if we get over 100 views. I just don't know. It's really hard to break in. It really is hard to get the algorithm ticking over and getting the views, and that's why. And I know Bing does this all the time, but that's why sharing it's really important, and commenting. And some of you guys are getting good now at the commenting because you're commenting into every stream, which is great. And we do come back to you. I think I liked a couple from Robin today, or yesterday. I can't remember. It all just rolls into one. I think I spent yesterday mainly doing podcasts because I forgot to do the podcasts before I went down to Eastbourne. And then I kind of neglected them at the beginning of the week, so I had to catch up on the podcast. There's about 6 podcasts that I published yesterday. So Trudy's watching on the big TV, so you'll see Chaz in his glory. You'll see him in his glory. Right. So, what shall we talk about? Shall we talk about Stonehenge? Do you want to talk about that? Is there anything else you want to get off your chest first? Anything you'd like to discuss? Feel free. I'm at your disposal. I'm just here as a sounding board. I think we're going to try phone-ins as well. We tried it before and it works now and again. But we'll maybe try it again and see how that goes. I see Amy's been harvesting corn today. She's been posting pictures, wielding a large knife. She looks quite dangerous, so I don't think we'll be rushing over there. Anyway, right, okay. I tell you what, let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this video about Stonehenge, and this was the rebuilding of Stonehenge in 1958. And think. Let's just think about what it's got. We'll pause it as we're going through it, and let's discuss it, and we can have a look and see what's happening. I hope you can. Let me check the volume level. Right, it's on full bung, so let's see how if everybody can hear it okay.
First in 1901, second in 1919, and then most extensively in 1958, where the site was virtually cleared of all of the stones.
Now, I don't know if this guy has recorded this in his car while waiting to pull into a lay-by or pull out of a lay-by, because it sounds like there's an indicator going on. Stonehenge or what are the Stoneheads? I think that's the Naffle people or something like that. Steer clear of them. That's like them. Oh, it's the Mutton Crew. That's the Mutton Crew. Yeah, steer clear of the Mutton Crew. How you seen them in like you seen them in like Twitter or something like that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Mutton Crew. Adam would be able to tell you better. He's more down with the kids. So. Yeah, they didn't half clear it. Look, they took everything away.
Then the site was excavated, and then the heavy lifting equipment came back in and put the stones into remade holes on which they were backfilled with ready-mixed concrete. Sadly, Stonehenge is today nothing more than a modern representation of an ancient monument, because it was dismantled and rebuilt.
Well, when you say fake news, Shalini, what do you mean? Because this did happen. I mean, this definitely happened, and it's probably happened more than once. But I know for a fact that this one happened. And these pictures are not fake.
Yeah, the guidebooks, the history books, and the official documents all say Stonehenge was built 4,000 years ago or thereabouts. There's no reference that it was built in 1958 using ready-mixed concrete and steel and wooden blocks. How the British government got away with destroying an ancient monument, rebuilding it, I've absolutely no idea. And the real reason that the excavation work was carried out, and the real reason, and that the tunnelling underneath the site. But what is more important?
So he's going to make a point here. Yeah, sure it was fun. But the guy's going to make a point here is, how do you know that the alignments that we have now were the alignments that were put in there when it was built? Because if it was built 4,000 years ago, the alignments should be different. So now if it lines up with the summer solstice and things like this, then they've adjusted it, haven't they? So it's really fake now, isn't it? So it's like a theme park. It's almost like a theme park. So what was the point? What was the point in doing this? Was it because it was falling into disrepair? I mean, there's big giant stones in the middle of nowhere. So I mean, the question is, what were they going to do? Why did they feel that they had to do it? They've reset the clock. That's what they've done, espresso mechanic. You're correct. They have reset the clock. Yeah. So, yeah.
Than any of that is the alignments. We can now never know for sure where those stones were aligned to. There is no way of ever getting that information back. The approximation that we now have that is being passed as some form of ancient, untouched, apart from conservation work site, is nothing of the sort. it is a rebuild, it's a copy, it's a replica of what was there. It goes to dismantling an ancient historic site, it goes to excavating an ancient historic site, and then it goes to rebuilding a site which is now no longer historic because it was taken down and it was rebuilt in the 1950s. So, as far as I'm concerned, that site is now a modern representation of something that used to be there.
Yeah, well, I think the guy's got a fair point. You know, it's not what it was, is it? Because it's been tampered with on a number of occasions, and obviously the tampering in 1958 was a lot more than one would have thought would have been required if it just needed a little bit of stabilising, you know. So, and, you know, the chat room here, you're bringing up great points, like, because we didn't have the same calendar back then. I think, when did the Gregorian calendar come in? It was what? Was it only in the last 1,000 years or something? So we were in a different calendar system before that, you know, whether it was 13 months or whatever. So, and then 4,000 years ago, so that's 2,000 years BC, you know, what calendar system were we working on then? And the guys would have been druids and witches and Wiccan or whatever you want to call them, and yes, all the hippies go there, but the hippies probably don't have a clue what happened. So the whole thing's just bizarre. I don't think they've taken down, like, I don't think they took down, like, the Colosseum in Rome. That still seems to be standing. We mentioned that last night. It's better concrete than Gatwick. But yeah. So Espresso Mechanic says the Acropolis in Athens was being renovated when you were there. Yeah. Well, back to what were they patching it up? Putting in concrete or whatever. See, this is the thing. If you keep patching up something that is ancient, when does it then become not ancient? When does it then just become like a Disney park? You know, just a representation of what was there before. I mean, they haven't patched up the pyramids yet. You know, although there's a lot. Egypt's really weird, isn't it? Because there's an awful lot they don't like you to look at, and they don't like you to examine, and they don't like you to go to. Like, you're not allowed to climb the pyramids anymore, probably because, you know, they don't want people knocking bits off it, and they are hell of a high and quite dangerous, I believe. But yeah, it's. I've never been to Egypt either, Shalini. I'd quite like to go in some respects, but yeah, I suppose I would quite like to see it, I suppose. But it's quite... in fact, you don't even need to go that far, because there's weird things happen. I mean, I remember walking around some town in the Borders with my daughter, and we're looking at the buildings and things, and you can do this in any town, really, any town that's got old buildings, which is probably most of the towns in the UK. So forget all the new buildings, but look at the buildings that were built allegedly in the 20s, 30s, you know, maybe even the 1800s. But you look at them and look where the windows and doors are, right? And a lot of them have got half windows. You know, half the windows underground. And it's like, why do you build half the window underground? And then in some cases they brick up the windows that are half underground, so they've now got bricked up windows, right? And they go down to ground level, and the ground level has been flattened off against the thing, and you can see the half window with the brick in it. But when you dig that back, and this does happen, because if I was better prepared, I'd have all this ready, and no doubt I think we'll probably do this with Ed one day or something, because I need to go into Tartaria and Mudflood and all that, and the World Fairs things, and because it's very, I find it very interesting, because it is there's questions that need to be asked. But when you look at these buildings that we all have in our towns, you just look at them, look at them critically and think, why are we building windows when the windows are almost entirely underground, right? Why would we build windows? And then you go down into some of these buildings and there are doors that have been bricked up because they would open into the earth. So it's like, what's going on? And then when they reconstitute the road, and you've seen this a few times when they're digging up roads and things, or something collapses and they've got to rebuild the road, they start digging up the road, and there's like a whole floor of the building underground that looks like it should have been above ground because it doesn't look like the foundations because it's got windows and doors in it, and you're like, what is going on? Why? I mean, it's not like nobody swept the streets for 10 years and the earth built up. Why is it like that? So what happened? Was this like the mud flood that they talk about? Did this actually happen? Was there a massive flood where people basically wiped out? Because when you look at the amount of people that are supposed to live in these cities back in, say the 1800s or the 1900s, or the very early 1900s and the 1800s, the amount of population that were in the cities was relatively small. And yet the cities were still cities. They weren't like little towns just made of wood and whatever. They still had their huge cathedrals and their massive town halls and things, and you see the photographs. There's never any people in the photographs, and there's two schools of thought here. One is there's just never any people around, okay? Or secondly, because camera technology was fairly new and you need to take a long exposure to get the thing, people would go out and take the exposures, very early in the morning before people were up. But, really, people are always up, at some point. But you very rarely see any people in these photographs because the question is that there weren't that many people about. Yeah. Oh, what's Vaughn going on about now? Tell me now, Star Wars didn't really happen along... Star Wars? Oh. No, of course it did. Well, of course it would. I mean, look, if you think about it, if the universe is, let's say if it is infinite, should it not be that anything possible has already happened and or will happen again? Because if it's infinite, there's infinite possibilities, and therefore everything should happen. There should be a copy of you running about, except in this case, it'll be ginger and have no soul. Yeah, they keep finding Roman remains here in Newport, but they keep building, not investigating. Well, of course, because it's like, does it not cause problems if you start unearthing a history that doesn't tie in with what we've already got? And this is all part of, like, we're part of this kind of narrative, aren't we? That everybody gets told what's happening and we're going along, and then suddenly something gets thrown in your face and you think, oh, hold on, that doesn't look right. Even just something as simple as, why are all the buildings got, windows underground? And then you start thinking about it, and then you start to question that, and then you start questioning other things, and before you know it, you're a full-blown conspiracy theorist. You've got a tinfoil hat, right? and people are, avoiding you and don't want to invite you to dinner parties or things in case you start talking about weird things. But the thing is, you're like, we didn't land on the moon and all this kind of thing. But when you start questioning these things, you can't stop. That's the problem, because you're not getting answers. We're not getting definitive answers to these problems. And I think some of the questions we ask are reasonable, are they not? I personally think the moon landing thing was just too big a risk. And we said this last night. It was too big a risk for America to not do it, right? But it was an even bigger risk to do it and lose the people. That would just have been a complete and utter disaster. So I don't think they could risk it. think they faked it. They might have sent a rocket there and just let it carry on its way or whatever. But I think they faked it because it was just too big a risk. Stonehenge was adjusted to a new schedule to make people work longer hours. Okay. I don't think it probably made much of a difference to the working hours. But we'll let you off with that one. Espresso Mechanic says, I'm sure they faked it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. Oh, you got Thunder and Lightning there now, Beats? Yeah, cool. Oh, hello, Big Papa Claus. Evening. We could have used you earlier. There was a question. That, the Stoneheads. What's the Stoneheads, Big Papa Claus? What do they mean? I thought it was Mutton Crew, but correct me if I'm wrong. So there we are. So the problem is we're all wandering around. We all think we've been told what happened at school, and then you get, well, let's face it, how much of what you were taught in school do you actually use? Other than being able to read and add addition and subtraction. And there's a whole nother mess. There's a whole other mess about how people don't listen when they're in school, right? Because there was, you know how people put these stupid maths problems up on Twitter and go, what's this? And it's like, it's got a couple of brackets in it. It's got an addition sum inside the bracket. It's got a multiplication sum outside the bracket, and it starts with a division, right? And it's like, people. It's just shut up fun. It's like people. It's quite simple, right? It's quite simple. You use that PEDMAS or BODMAS or whatever you want to call it, right? So PEDMAS would be parenthesis, so everything in the brackets gets done first. Well, or parenthesis or whatever you want to call it, or squiggly brackets. You know, whatever brackets you got, do that first. Then it's multiplication, division, right? You know, PEDMAS, division, multiplication. Now, division and multiplication are a group. So whichever comes first from left to right gets done first. You don't do multiplication before division. You don't necessarily do division before multiplication. You do whatever's first on the left. You do that first. And then addition and subtraction are a group as well. So you do whatever comes first. So if subtraction comes before addition, you do the subtraction, and then you do the addition. And that way you will get the right answer every time. And when you've got a guy who apparently has 2 maths degrees getting the answer wrong, you've just got to laugh at these people. You just got to laugh at them. It's like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that's the final answer. And well, sir, you're wrong. You are wrong. It was quite funny. Right, let's catch up on the chat. Let's see what we're up to. Hello, Pepper Claus. Right, blah, blah, blah. Fun, you don't use trigonometry all the time. Everything I'm good at, I taught myself. The vast majority of what I learned at school, I forgot as soon as I left. Well, yeah, I mean, pretty much, as soon as you get a job, you learn what you need to do the job. And that's kind of what happens throughout life, doesn't it? I mean, the other thing, the only things you've really ever needed is being able to read. Once you can read, you can teach yourself, right? So you don't need to, as long as you can read and comprehend things and think properly, you don't need school. School's there as a training ground to get you ready for work. That's all it is. Just to get you used to getting up in the morning, turning up at a place, sitting down, doing your work, having your lunch, do the rest of your work, go home. That's how school does. It just treats you like a worker, except you don't get paid. That's all school does. So it prepares you for work. And then you go to university or you go to college or whatever, and suddenly the people don't understand how it works because having worked in a university, right? You see all these students asking for help all the time, and it's like, well done, you're not at school, right? You've now got to stand on your own 2 feet. You've got to do your own thing. You turn up at a lecture, the guy will talk to you for like an hour. You take notes, You go away, you digest it. If you have questions, you go and read the books in the reading list. It's all provided for you, but you've actually got to do some work yourself. And that's the difference, because you're no longer being taught. You're not being force-fed information. What's happening is what they're trying to do is enable you to think. And that's a harder job, I would say, than most. And that's why university is valuable if you go into it with the right attitude. Not that you're there to learn things, but you're there to learn how to learn. Because learning is not a process that you should ever stop doing. And I would say, if you stop learning, you just stop living, don't you? If you're not learning, you're not living. It's my view. Right. See if they're proper. They don't allow people into Stonehenge anymore, do they? No rain in Julieland in Wales. If they paid kids, it would improve their grades. I don't think it would. I don't think it would make much difference, to be fair. Because you get kids that want to work and want to learn, and you get kids that don't want to work and don't want to learn, and you get people that are in between. You get people that wake up halfway through school and go, hold on a minute, I want to actually do something, and maybe I need to get a few grades because I want to be able to go and do something. So, the school's just a mishmash. In some respects, it's putting an awful lot on us at too early an age, because we're not equipped and we're not ready to make some of the decisions that we're then going to have to apply to ourselves for our whole life, You're asking people to make decisions at 17 and 18 about what they're going to do for the rest of their life. No, it's not going to work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's why people change careers and people get fed up. And, because you pick something that you want to do when you're young doesn't mean you want to do it when you're 40, and doesn't mean you want to do it when you're 50, and doesn't mean you want to do it when you're 60. Life evolves. You've got to go through these different phases and changes, and to not allow people to do that and put them in a box and say, that's it. You're working for Rolls-Royce and you'll make this widget, right? You'll make this widget that goes in this jet engine, and you'll do it for 30 years. Then we'll give you a carriage clock, and you can go home, play a couple of rounds of golf, drink yourself stupid, and die. And basically that's it. That's how life works for a lot of people. And what do you get out of that? 2 holidays a year. Sit on a beach, get sunburnt, drink yourself stupid, come back home, back to making widgets. Is that life? Is it? Is that your life? Is that what you want? Don't put too much into your work. Because if you're working for someone, you're not working for yourself. And if you're not working for yourself, you're not developing yourself. If you're not developing yourself, what are you doing? You are a slave. That's it. That's all you are. So, never put too much into your work. Put it into yourself. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, do you have to pay to go into Stonehenge now? Really? 26 quid for an adult? 200 metres away from the stones? Good grief. That's shocking. A local school refused to let a lad back until next month. So who are they punishing when they do this? Because it's like, they're not punishing him because he probably doesn't want to go to school, right? They're punishing his parents because probably both of them are working and now they've got to get childcare for a month. They're punishing themselves because he's going to come back and he's going to be a month behind, so they're going to have to give him more information to get him up to speed with the rest of it. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's just stupidity. Why would people do that? I mean, if you think about it sensibly, what's the point? What's the point? Somebody turns up, and what does it matter? Does wearing a certain pair of shoes make you a worse learner than someone who's wearing the right pair of shoes? What does it matter? This is the whole thing at work as well. This really pissed me off. How does wearing a tie make you better than someone who doesn't wear a tie? That's the part I don't understand. I hate wearing a tight neck, like a collar and tie. probably because of this displaced salivary gland I've got, because it puts pressure on it and it annoys me. But what difference does it make to your work output what you wear, really? Unless you're unless you're a cop or something like that, and you got to wear a uniform to be identified so those people can avoid you, or you're a soldier or something like that, and you want to wear body armor and things like that so you don't get shot. Yeah, that's sensible stuff, right? But when you're at school, what does it matter what you wear? They don't make you wear a uniform when you go to university, do they? Do they? No, they don't. You might put yourself in a uniform, but that's a different thing altogether, and they call that uniform fashion, don't they? But hey, let's not go down that route. So, right, so where are we? Indiana Jones got a carriage clock, did he? I don't know. I gave up watching it. That's true. I'll hit the button.
That's true.
There you go. You can go and touch the stones if you take LSD and go to the right. Okay, we'll not go down that route. Jump down the tunnel engines if they can. Air Force Ones make me a bit taller. Oh, that's the shoes, I take it. Uniforms about conformity. Yeah, of course it is. Again, that's them getting you ready. Same issues with Dylan. I made sure they played my way in the end. Yeah, I mean, they don't see. This is the problem with schools. They don't want individuals, and then you go to university, and you've got to be an individual, because if you conform, well, you've got to conform and be an individual at the same time. So it's just really crazy. You know, the whole thing's crazy the way that they do this. I just find it strange. Pin-on ties. Well, the clip-ons. Yeah, that's what the police use, because somebody grabs your tie, it just comes off. Or police don't wear ties anymore, do they? They wear t-shirts and things now. They think they're like tank commanders or something. I mean, it's like, you know, when I was in the police, I thought, you know, because we used to wear white shirt, black tie, blue epaulets. If it was hot, you got to roll your sleeves up. That's all you got. You didn't get to take your tie off. You just got to roll your sleeves up. Okay, that was all you got, right? Then they had a big step forward, and they brought in short sleeve shirts. So you could, when you got your issue, you got 6 shirts a year. So you could take some of your shirts as short sleeve shirts. So you had to balance it out. So in Scotland, I'd probably take 2 short sleeve shirts and 4 long sleeved. Because you'd be in long sleeve shirts more than you'd be in short sleeve shirts. Because once it started getting cold and you put your jacket on, it was the battle dress tunic, right? And the battle dress tunic is basically what it was. It was a battle dress tunic from the Second World War. So that's what the police uniform was, with the belt and everything, and it was made of like serge. So you needed a long sleeve shirt because it would irritate you if it was against your skin, especially my skin, because I bruise like a peach. But anyway, apart from that, so I used to say, why can't we wear? I used to say to like the inspector, why can't we wear things like jumpers and stuff like the Americans do? And he's going, because we can't look too military. We don't want to look paramilitary. And I'm like, hold on a minute, we're wearing a battle dress tunic. How can we look any more military than we do at the moment? And then eventually they brought in the NATO jumper, and that made a big difference, especially when you were in a car all day. So the NATO jumper was better. But yeah, and now they wear these stupid, they wear these horrible t-shirts, don't they? These things that are skin tight. That's the problem, because there's not many cops, once they get over a certain age, that are fit enough to wear skin tight clothing. It's like, it's not a good look. It's like walking across the station when somebody's wheeling his bike down and he's meeting 2 veg and bouncing around in his lycra, and it's like, for fuck's sake, mate, would you stop doing things like that? I haven't even had my breakfast and he's putting it out there. So what happened there? How did that happen? Did you see that? My frame disappeared and then came back. And I didn't do anything. That's bizarre. Is the PC haunted? Do we have a haunted PC? No, stop that. It's quite dark in here. Anyway. Right. So, was that you, Chats? Was it you? You little raccoon, you. Right. And now well, yeah. I mean, let's face it. The police has really gone downhill, hasn't it? I mean, I did put a tweet out today because someone said the British have always had a mistrust of guns, and no, they haven't. It's been something that's been brought into our. It's a mistrust that's been foisted on us and nurtured by the government, which culminated in them taking away our handguns. Because now the only people in the UK that have handguns are the criminals. That's it, the criminals. Because that other group that call themselves the police are now, in my view, very much criminals as well. So, as I say, the only people that have handguns in the UK are criminals. Did Alex, are we talking about Alex Belfield or Alex Jones? Alex Belfield. Did he wear a tie? I can't remember. Yeah, I bet well, he won't get a tie because that's an implement that can be used to do a bad thing. So you won't get a tie in prison. And I see the guy that did the old I'm hanging on to the bottom of the lorry thing got arrested. But the whole thing sounds a bit suspicious, but we might dig into that more tomorrow. Right, so I've gone off on a bit of a tangent because I was talking about, looking around at houses and how they seem to be built up from a new level in some respects. So when you're out and about, just have a look round. Even in London and places like that, you'll notice it. You will know if you actually open your eyes and start looking at these things. You'll notice it because you see them in Glasgow and Edinburgh all the time. You see them in towns, even towns like Ayr and places like that. You'll see this. You won't see it in new flats and things, and you won't see it in stuff built in the 50s and 60s. But you'll see it in the older stuff. It's like it's too. The ground is now too high for where the building is, and I don't think the building's sunk because buildings. Subsidence doesn't work in that the building just goes down straight, they normally fall over. So, interesting. And then, I mean, we talk about all these other things look at the Leaning Tower of Pisa. When was that built? Was it not Galileo that dropped these balls off it or something? So, when was that built? It's been there for years. And how did they build that? And how do they build these massive cathedrals with massive bits of stone? I mean, I can see the stonework's really well done, and stonemasons, in fact, it's probably better than any stonework you're going to get from people these days. But how do they get everything up there? It's really tricky. And then you come to the pyramids, and this whole putting a ramp up thing just doesn't work. You can't build. I mean, they talk nonsense about it being built in 20 years. I don't think the Egyptians built these pyramids. I don't think they had the skill level to do it. I really don't. They certainly didn't build the Sphinx. That's definitely been much older than they say. Constructed of marble, lime and stones, the tower is built in a circular ditch about 5 feet deep on ground consisting of Shut up, Adam. I mean, just do it. If you want to show me it, do it. Pulleys and levers. Yeah, okay. Pulleys and levers. Okay. Yeah. When the tower is just over 3 stories tall, construction stops for unknown reasons. I don't understand. What took 199 years to build? What took 199 years? Pisa or the pyramids? Well, it's possible they were cast. I don't know. Maybe they were. But some of those blocks aren't some of the blocks that are used and some of the statues and things like, you know, used in the obelisks and stuff aren't cast, because you can see where they've been hacking them out of the ground. And look at the weight of them. How were they going to lift that? How were they going to lift that? That's the one I don't get. I mean, you see that one that cracked when they were taking it out the quarry, and obviously they tunneled down both sides, and you know they were going to lift it, and it cracked, and they just left it. How were they going to get it out? It was like mega tonnage. You know, I don't think you'd be struggling to lift it with a modern crane. That's the thing. It's crazy. The Tower of Pisa took 199 bloody hell. That's a long time. I mean, they say they built the pyramid. They say they built a big pyramid in 20 years. It's a big ask. And yet they never found. Remember, they never found any bodies in it. There's no hieroglyphics inside it, right? So there's no hieroglyphics in it. There's no bodies in it. There was no the sarcophagus that's in it isn't something that anybody's ever been in. They never found anybody buried in it. So what was it there for? It wasn't a tomb. So what was it? You know? And what about all the tunnels underneath and the water and all that? What's all that about? Don't know. It's maybe worth a rabbit hole. Oh. Right, Puma. Oh God. I've been watching this guy called Roger. Is it Spar or something? And he's I don't know whether he's got a point or not. I don't know whether he's a loony or not, right? Because he kind of makes sense on some respects, but then he goes off on these tangents, and he says, like, see the walls at Puma Punko and things like that, with the knobs on them and things like that. He says they're biological, and I'm like, ah. And he says they're cells, right, that have been turned to stone by, and he's kind of got some backing on this, right, because they've now found that soft tissues can turn to stone by, I can't remember the exact term, but it's basically to do with electron and metal ion transfer. So metals in if there's water and metals about, the biology will transfer the electrons until ultimately it becomes a stable form, in which case it's like stone, right? And while he takes it further than anyone else, Yale University do kind of back him up, because this has happened, and they're saying, and it seems to happen in hours or days, and he's saying I don't think it happens in hours, you know, but it could certainly happen in weeks, if not months. It happens quickly, and that's why you can find fossils and things, you know, stones that look like biological things. And you know, what he's saying is that this electron transfer thing has basically turned them to stone. But what he says is that those walls and things are like like cells of a giant or something like that, and where the bumps are tendons, and it's, to me, he's just gone way too far. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of believability about some of his stuff, but I think he goes off in one. So I'm not quite sure about that. The pyramids have no hieroglyphs, that's correct, which does suggest they were something other than burial chambers. Surely they would refer to who was entombed in them. Here lies King Khufu. Yeah, well, exactly. And let's face it, the Egyptians were no stranger to taking someone else's work and purporting it as their own, because they used to chip over the previous, what's the head of Egypt called? Oh, the king or whatever, Pharaoh. So they used to chip over the old Pharaoh's name and put their own in place and things like that. So no strangers are stealing stuff. I think there's loads of questions about the pyramids. Was it aliens though? Was it aliens? I don't think so. I think, and I think Ben agrees with me on this one. In that, in fact, Ben's quite adamant on it. To be fair, and I think I'm with him on it. And that I'm pretty sure there was a previous civilization, and possibly more than one over the many years. And I think we get wiped out or something because cataclysmic events happen, and I think what happens is we get wiped out and knowledge is lost. And you think about it, right? You think about how much knowledge from our civilization would be retained if we were wiped out by a worldwide disaster, right? They had massive meteorite hit us and there was massive flooding, fires, everything. How long would it take? I mean, there'll be some people left. Some people will survive and, holes in the ground or, whatever. But there will be people left and we would probably come back and rebuild. But how much information is going to be left? Because this isn't something you're going to rebuild over 10 or 20 years. This is something you're going to rebuild over 1,000 or 2,000 years, right? So how much information from our civilization will be left? Because anything metal's gone. Forget it. It's just rusted away. It's just not there anymore. Anything modern's gone because crumbly concrete's just falling apart. So anything modern's gone, right? So what are we leaving behind that we didn't? I mean, all our information's gone because our libraries are now data files on computers, which are just going to, they're just going to disappear, aren't they? I mean, a hard drive's just going to rust away to nothing. What's a RAM chip going to do? You wouldn't even recognise it, would you? So people will be digging up, maybe they'll dig up a part of a central processor at some point in the future and go, oh, look at that. I wonder what that was. It looks a bit like a computer chip, but it's not really. I like the Antikythera Americanism, that kind of thing. So I'm pretty much sure that we're just repeating what's happened before, and we're lucky and that we're in a part of life when, things are relatively easy for us. We're not grubbing about. We're not grubbing about clubbing each other over the head and raping women and taking them back to our caves and all that, and people dying in childbirth and no medicine and all that. So we've got past that stage. So we're having a kind of lucky-ish part. And the question is, how far does it go on before some cataclysm wipes us out and everything resets again? Or does someone just push the button and resets the simulation? Is that what happens? Because, you ever played The Sims? Yeah? Oh, I'm getting bored with this. Send in Godzilla, Yeah? Is that what happens? Is that where we are right now? Are we Sims? You suddenly think, we make all these memes about non-player characters and suddenly we realise we're NPCs? My God. Do you remember that? What was that movie where the guy... The guy was he was an NPC and he became aware quite recently. Was it Ryan Reynolds again? Was it? It might have been, but I remember he was in a video game and he suddenly became aware, and it was actually all right. It was quite funny. Right, okay. I've been on a good trip tonight, haven't I? So yeah, right. Let's have a look at the what do you call it? Chat. NBC see mysterious hieroglyphs written in red paint on the floor of a hidden chamber in Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza are just numbers, not proper hieroglyphs though. Okay. Don't know about that one, Adam. Stargate, yeah, there's always that. The pyramids have we've done that. Clearly acoustic levitation. So you're talking about the guy that built the Coral Castle, are you, Adam? Is this where you're going? Are you thinking that? How did he do that? It's because coral's not light. But I think that might be worth a rabbit hole or something like that. The Coral Castle. There's a fair bit of speculation about and he always did it at night, didn't he? Under cover of darkness, I shall not reveal my sources. A realm of dwarfs and pygmies. Well, there's still some lying about, isn't there? But I mean, look at you still get pygmies in New Guinea and things like that. So yeah, and obviously we still get dwarfs. Thankfully. The Egyptians used holiday hills for burials. Yeah, they did. After the pyramids, why would they suddenly change track? Well, yeah, exactly. The pyramids were never tombs. Never. There's just the whole Egyptology thing is it's to take you down a rabbit hole for whatever reason I don't understand, because it's like they don't want to see what's actually happening, because it's like everything, you build your career on it, and if you change the story, then your career goes down the toilet, doesn't it? So there's that. Yeah. The Natural History Museum says there was 8 species of humans. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Adam. The pyramids are the only thing that would survive. Yep. And the Vatican Library, air conditioning would stop, so no books. Yeah, exactly. Well, the Vatican Library would either fall in on it or it would be flooded or whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, and there's be no information left if there was a cataclysm. Adam's gone off on one. The moon is a soul harvester. Yeah, okay. The gallery features 8 other kinds of human. What kind? What kinds of human are we talking? Are we talking about like Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon and all that kind of thing, or are we talking something different here, Robin? I'm not quite sure where we're going. There's a church built of coral on Rarotonga. Scientist explains how to levitate objects with sound. Is that what's his name? Oh, the guy John. Is it? It's not Houston, is it? What was his name? Oh, good grief! I have seen him doing this, right? And you don't know if it's real or not, but this guy's he's a bit fruity, but recluse-like. But the kind of guy that you think, if anyone could do it, it would be someone like that. Someone working alone in a lab is going to crack the anti-gravity problem, and suddenly, next thing you know, the Jetsons is real. Special mechanic. I tend to go with the theory that pyramids were the power stations of the day. Now, that's an interesting one, right? So, and I've seen this before, and I think this... Right. So, the problem is, why are they not working now? What's needed to make them work, and how did they work? Because they were encased in limestone originally, so they would have been blindingly white. It's alleged that they had a gold top. Shut up, Adam. Just shut up. You're just pissing me off now. So if they had a gold top, that's a cracking conductor. But what's in them that's going to generate the power? So I don't pretend to know if there's something special in them that, with the way the air would flow through it, or if there was a higher water table or something like that, if it would make some sort of difference. So I'm not quite sure what would cause it to be a power station. But, pyramids are really strange because there's more pyramids in the world than anything else. And they're all over the place. They're on every continent. Even in China, even in Europe. So there are pyramids everywhere. And they all follow similar kind of... Well, they're pyramids, so they obviously follow that. But some of them are stepped and some of them aren't. But everybody's built pyramids, and it's almost as if some of the South American pyramids are very close to the ones they build in like Cambodia and stuff like that. So you've got to think, there was communication, and then there was communication in the ancient world before we started exploring. And when I say we, I'm probably, I don't want to be castigated for it, but what I'm probably saying here is white men, because that's who started exploring in our kind of recent history, right? So when Britain and the Vikings and the French and the Spanish all went out and explored the world, they found things like Australia and New Zealand, South America, all that. So there's a group of people in South America who have got Aboriginal DNA mixed in with their DNA. So it's almost certainly that Aborigines from Australia travelled to South America before we even knew about South America or Australia. So work that one out, because that's a hell of a distance. That's a big distance. Right. Could there have been something in the sarcophagus that's just possible? It's possible. I mean, we've seen that battery type thing. You know, we've seen the batteries in Iraq that are made out of like acid and plates and will produce electricity. We've seen the hieroglyph that looks like a filament lamp. You know, I mean, if it is or not, I don't know. Some people say it's a snake or a representation of something, but you know, it looks like a filament lamp. It looks like a filament light bulb, a big one, but that's what it looks like. Yeah, porcelain and copper cylinders. Yeah, there is all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't think you can buy a pyramid beads. They tend to hang on to them. Or, like in Bosnia, they just pretend it's a hill. Oh, ancient humans settled in North America around 130,000 years ago suggests a controversial study. I don't even think it's that controversial, because if you look at the weight of evidence behind it, there's like the red-haired people that were found. Okay, so red hair is not indigenous to not African. Red hair is not indigenous at all to Native Americans, right? So the red-haired, light-skinned people found buried in North America well before Columbus, well before Eric the Red, right? So there's a good chance that there was people travelling to America well before the Vikings found it, Greenland, and well before Columbus, if he existed, actually found it. Because how do we know these people actually did this? Because is it just made up? And you know the 900-year problem. There's this 900-year problem in the last 2,000 years that just seems to be completely missing, and we can't really work out where it should be, because nothing happened for 900 years. And I know we had the Dark Ages and that, but 900 years is a hell of a long time for nothing to happen. And then suddenly, round about, late 1700s, everything kicks off and bang, next thing you know, we've got electricity, we've got petrol and diesel engines, we've got steam, we've got, next thing you know, we're flying, and then we're on the moon. And that happens in what? Less than 200 years? So we sat around procrastinating for 200,000 years, right? Because they reckon, modern human appeared 200,000 years ago? Just appeared. No evolution, no missing links, just appeared. Modern humans appeared 200,000 years ago, right? Didn't evolve from current apes because the complete mismatch in chromosomes. So, didn't evolve from apes. And if we did evolve from apes, where's the in-between part? Nope, can't find it. So we appeared 200,000 years ago like that, and then we didn't do anything until 200 years ago. That's procrastination on a grand scale, and I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Yeah, history is only real if you buy into it. That's the thing. Yeah. If you were a Basque fan, I mean, I know, right, let's face it. I know the Spanish and the French have got a kind of bad rep for stealing other people's fish, but 3,000 miles is a hell of a way to go to steal somebody's fish. Do you not think? And I'm not being a fool at you, Robin. It's a bit of a stretch, but because I don't know. I just don't know. The problem's not eating when you're at sea. The problem's water. That's the problem. So, did they have enough water to do that kind of journey? If they were getting blown about at the mercies of the of the wind. But hey ho, I don't know. What fish were they though? Yeah, well, what fish were they? I don't believe that human technological development is a linear process. Yeah. Ancient civilizations were far more developed than we think. Probably, yeah. Possibly more developed than we are today. There's a definite possibility of that, because as we discussed earlier, how much of our, if there was a big calamity, a big cataclysm that wiped us all out, how much of our information and much of our current technology and civilization would survive? And I would submit very, very little. Very little. I mean, nothing that I'm sitting in would survive. None of the kit that's spread around me would survive. You know, you might find like, what's this? I mean, stainless steel full tang knife. So the plastic would all erode away, but you might find a knife. You might find a knife encased in minerals, you know, and think, oh, somebody made a knife. But not much else is going to survive. All this electronic kit's just going to disappear. It's all plastic and circuits and stuff. There'll be little bits of gold, you know. This might be a nice wee seam of gold with all the gold that leaches out of the electronics kit. Somebody goes, oh, I found a gold seam, a gold nugget. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Well, right, so here's the question for you, Harold, about oil then. What about oil? Is oil fossil fuel or is it not? Because that's a contentious one as well, isn't it? Because the North Sea was supposed to run out of oil in the year 2000 and it didn't. And on a lot of occasions, it's not because they found more oil fields, it's because the ones that they had emptied have filled back up. So there is this theory that oil's like generated by the pressures and the chemical processes in the earth. And hey, and then there's the other thing. Why do you have to drill deeper than the fossil record to get oil? If it's a fossil fuel, why do you have to go beyond the fossil record to get oil? You know, why is it deeper than the fossils? How does that work? The Antikythera mechanism is a case in point for ancient civilizations being technologically advanced. It's fascinating artifact. Indeed it is. Expresso mechanic. Indeed it is. I was watching something about how it actually worked and what it did, and it's quite a fascinating piece of kit. Definitely worth watching. Just definitely. So that's about an hour, and I'm getting hot and sweaty. Have we had a good evening? Have we? I have seen the astrological clock in Prague. I have been to Prague and seen that clock. It is a lovely looking thing. It's a lovely looking thing. Oh, thank you, Expresso. Oh, it's been great. Oh. So tomorrow night we'll be back to Chasing Dissent Live with myself and Ben. And remember, if you haven't liked us, for God's sake, like it, or you'll start going, you didn't tell them to like it. Or if you ever want to think about supporting us or subscribe, you know, wire in, guys, wire in. But more than anything, share us out, tell people about us, evangelise for us, get more and more people coming to watch us. And hopefully we'll get bigger and we can stop pestering you, you know. But yeah, I think I've had a good night. I've enjoyed what I've talked about. I've just touched on subjects. I haven't gone into them in great depth, other than the Stonehenge thing, which was quite interesting. So I've had a good night, and I hope you have too. So with that, thank you very much for coming along and joining me this splendid evening. And we'll see you tomorrow. And as always, it's been great. For you.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with the certainty I have legacy, a message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with. Now they looking nervously, and I don't really care what you think of me respectfully. You can kick rocks if you think you're fucking better, see. I will outwork you, turn you to an enemy, hurt you so bad that you're gonna need some therapy. I got the motherfucking recipe, I've been cooking up hits, I'ma leave a legacy. You'll be looking small when you're standing right next to me. I'm 5'10", bitch, but I'm 10 feet.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way.
I can't contain it, I'm coming out with a statement. You really changed, man, all your music and arrangement. You don't know shit, shut your mouth, you can save it. I'm the same dude that got his come up from the basement. 100 songs, 100 weeks, didn't change it. Experiments, development, intelligence, and patience. I'll do it all again, cause I never feel complacent. Let's keep the good vibes, positivity's contagious. I'm never looking back, cause I made a life that's passionate. A college graduate suppressing all his talents, yeah. He found a way to go and change, become an advocate. For taking control of your life, go out and battle. And you think you have a dream, then act on it. Get after it, get out your head and fucking capture it. You got one life to master it. Don't give up on your future, we all start losers. We're all late bloomers, gotta struggle through the sewer.
What you say? Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build